Hi, it's Mark Donegan with the Marketing Execution Podcast. To start, did you know that decline happens in 5 predictable phases? Jim Collins' research proves this, and yet most leaders miss the early warnings until it's too late. Next, consider that the real danger is overconfidence after success, which is when the decline clock starts ticking. I've personally watched this pattern destroy promising tech companies, and the signs are always there if you know where to look. Finally, in my conversation, I will break down Collins' framework and how to spot trouble before it sinks your company.
Tune in, listen up, it's marketing time. Bright ideas sparking, growing your mind. From strategies to big exec dreams, catch the buzz and join the execution. Marketing cannonballs.
Welcome to the Marketing Execution Podcast. This is the show for tech founders and leaders building B2B products and technologies. We show you how to go further, faster to get the business results you need.
From strategies to big exec dreams, catch the buzz and join the execution. Marketing cannonballs.
Mark, I've been sitting with this idea all week, and honestly, it's been kind of haunting me. You know how we always talk about growth and scaling and all that good stuff? Well, I started reading about why great companies fail, and it's not what I expected at all.
Oh man, you're going down the Jim Collins rabbit hole, aren't you? The how the mighty fall stuff.
Yes, exactly. And here's what's messing with my head. We spent so much time studying success, right? Like, what did the winners do? But Collins flips it completely. He says understanding failure is actually more valuable.
You know what? I think he's onto something there. I once heard of a company that was absolutely crushing it in their space, like they were the darling of their industry, and within 3 years, gone, just gone. And when I dug into what happened, it wasn't some external thing that killed them. It was all internal, all self-inflicted wound.
So walk me through this. Collins talks about 5 phases of decline. What's the first one that founders should be paranoid about?
Okay, so the first phase is overconfidence. And here's the thing that's really sneaky about it. It doesn't feel like arrogance when you're in it. It feels like earned confidence. You've been winning, your metrics are up, customers love you. So you start thinking, well, everything we touch turns to gold.
Right. The Midas complex.
Exactly. And it shows up in 2 ways. Either you get so arrogant that you push forward with terrible ideas because you think you're immune to failure, or, and this is the one I see all the time with founders, you get distracted by shiny new things and take your eye off what Collins calls your flywheel.
The flywheel being your core business, the thing that's actually working.
Yes, your core business, the thing generating momentum. And I've seen this play out so many times. A founder builds something successful, and then they're like, oh, we should also do this other completely unrelated thing. And meanwhile, their main product starts getting neglected. The flywheel slows down.
That's such a trap because as founders, we're wired to chase new opportunities.
100%. And look, Collins isn't saying don't innovate. He's saying innovate within your area of strength. If you're crushing it with baked goods, maybe expand to dog treats or cake pans. Don't suddenly pivot to manufacturing car parts because you think you're a genius.
Okay, so overconfidence is phase 1. What comes next?
Phase 2 is overreaching. And this is where the bigger is better mentality kicks in. The company gets obsessed with growth, but it's the wrong kind of growth. They're not focused on getting better people or improving performance. They just want to get bigger, faster, even if it means abandoning what made them successful.
I feel like I see this in the startup world constantly, the pressure to scale at all costs.
Oh, it's everywhere. And here's what's interesting about this on the Marketing Execution Podcast. The companies that survive, they grow deliberately. They're almost paranoid about maintaining quality while they scale. But the ones that blow up, they chase that hockey stick growth without building the foundation to support it.
And what drives that overreaching? Is it just ego?
A lot of times it's having the wrong leaders in place. Collins makes this point that building a great company is a team sport, but one wrong person at the top can destroy everything. And it often comes down to succession. A strong founder leaves without training anyone, or the board fights over who should take over. And suddenly, you've got a leadership vacuum.
Or worse, you bring in someone who doesn't understand the culture at all.
Exactly. And then you get this vicious cycle. The wrong people aren't intrinsically motivated, so leadership puts in more processes and bureaucracy to control them. Then the good people get frustrated by all the red tape and leave. So you hire more mediocre people, more red tape, more good people leaving until eventually you've got a bunch of B players making C decisions.
That's terrifying. Okay, so phase 3. What happens after overreaching?
Phase 3 is ignoring the warning signs or misreading them. And this is where leaders start doing mental gymnastics to avoid facing reality. Sales are down? Oh, that's just the economy. Customers are churning? Well, they weren't our target market anyway. They find ways to interpret bad data optimistically instead of, actually dealing with it.
And I'm guessing that leads to some pretty bad decisions.
Catastrophic decisions, because when you're in denial, you start taking massive risks, all or nothing bets. Collins talks about Motorola pouring billions into satellite phones when cell phones were clearly the future. The evidence was right there. Cell phones were cheaper, sleeker, better coverage, but Motorola convinced themselves there was still a market for satellite phones.
Yeah, that didn't end well for them.
Not at all. And here's another thing companies do in this phase. They reorganize, sometimes multiple times. It's like rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. They make all these cosmetic changes that don't address the actual problems.
So what happens when they finally can't ignore the problems anymore?
That's phase 4, overcorrecting. The situation gets so bad that leaders panic. They're in survival mode. And when humans are fighting to survive, we make desperate moves. So they bring in some hotshot CEO from outside the company, or they completely overhaul their strategy, big splashy acquisitions, culture makeovers, revolutionary new products, anything that might be a quick fix.
Let me guess, the quick fixes don't work.
Almost never. Because the new CEO doesn't understand the culture. The new strategy confuses employees. The acquisition doesn't integrate properly. And all these desperate moves drain resources. So you end up in phase 5, giving up, either because you've run out of money or because readership just loses the will to fight.
So is that it? Once you're in decline, are you doomed?
No. And this is the hopeful part. Collins says, as long as your company still has a worthy purpose, you should keep fighting. But the path back isn't about finding a miracle cure. It's about going back to basics. Get the right people in place, people who actually fit your culture. Focus on your flywheel again. Be disciplined about evaluating decisions rationally instead of emotionally.
That's fascinating. Let's pivot for a second and talk about what this actually looks like in practice for a founder who realizes they're in phase 2 or 3 right now.
That question hits different when you're actually living it, because here's the thing about phase 2 and 3. They don't announce themselves. There's no alarm that goes off saying, hey, you're overreaching now.
Right, it's not like you wake up one morning and think, oh no, I'm ignoring a warning sign.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes Collins' work so valuable here. It's not just about knowing the phases exist, it's about understanding why they matter to you specifically. Like, what does this mean for a founder sitting in their apartment right now, staring at their metrics?
So break that down for me. Why should a founder care about this framework beyond just academic interest?
Okay, so here's the big one. The reason this matters is because decline is recoverable. That's the whole point. Collins isn't writing a doom and gloom manual. He's saying, look, if you catch yourself in phase 2 or 3, you haven't lost yet, but you have to be honest with yourself first. And that honesty piece is where most founders struggle. I know of a company that was clearly in phase 3. All the signs were there. Customer churn was creeping up, their best engineers were leaving, but every board meeting, the founder had an explanation. Oh, the economy is weird right now. Oh, those customers weren't our ideal profile anyway.
The mental gymnastics you mentioned earlier.
Yes. And every month you spend in denial is a month you're burning runway without fixing the real problem. It's not just about ego, it's about survival math. The longer you wait to face reality, the fewer options you have.
So what's the actual shift that needs to happen, like in a founder's head?
I think it comes down to separating your identity from your company's performance. And that sounds like therapy talk, I know. But seriously, when founders can't admit something's wrong, it's usually because admitting it feels like admitting they're wrong, like they failed personally.
That's heavy, but it makes sense.
And Collins touches on this when he talks about the right people. He says you need folks who are responsible and accountable, but what he's really saying is you need people, including yourself, who can look at bad data and not flinch, who can say, yeah, we messed up, now let's fix it.
Without the blame game, because blame is just another form of denial, right?
If it's always someone else's fault, you never have to change anything about how you operate.
I feel personally attacked right now.
Hey, we've all been there. But here's the hopeful part, and I think this is what founders need to hear. Collins says as long as your company still has a worthy purpose, you keep fighting. That's not motivational poster stuff, that's practical advice. Because the path back isn't about finding some magic solution, it's about returning to fundamentals.
The flywheel, your core thing, the reason customers chose you in the first place.
Yeah, and I've seen founders get so distracted chasing what they think growth should look like that they forget what actually works. They're out there trying to be everything to everyone when they should be doubling down on being great at one thing.
So it's almost like the framework gives you permission to simplify.
That's a beautiful way to put it. Permission to simplify. Permission to say no to the shiny new thing. Permission to be boring and disciplined instead of constantly pivoting.
Okay, I'm convinced this matters, but now I'm curious about something else. What does this actually look like when you're trying to implement it? Like the practical nuts and bolts of turning things around.
All right, so here's the first thing. And this sounds almost too simple, but trust me, you need to build what I call a decline radar. It's basically a weekly check-in where you ask yourself 3 questions. Number 1, what's one thing that worked last month that isn't working now? Number 2, who on my team seems disengaged or frustrated? And number 3, what am I avoiding talking about?
That last one is brutal.
It's supposed to be brutal because that's where the gold is.
So you're saying the tool isn't the point, the habit is the point.
Exactly right. You could do this on a napkin. The point is you're forcing yourself to look at reality every single week, not once a quarter when the board asks.
Okay, I like that. What else?
Second thing, and this one saved the company I know from going under. You gotta protect your flywheel people.
Wait, flywheel people?
Yeah, so Collins talks about the flywheel as your core business, right? Well, there are usually 3 to 5 people in any startup who are that flywheel. They're the ones who actually make the thing go. Your best engineer, your top sales rep, your ops person who somehow keeps everything running. It's the people you'd be terrified to lose. And here's what most founders mess up. When things get hard, they start cutting costs everywhere. They freeze salaries, and those flywheel people start feeling undervalued.
And then they leave, right?
I watched the SaaS company lose their 2 best engineers in the same month because the founder was so focused on runway that he forgot to just talk to them. They didn't even want more money. They wanted to know the company had a future.
So the practical step here is what? Have a conversation?
Have the conversation. Sit down with your 3 most critical people and ask them directly, what would make you leave? What do you need from me right now? And then actually listen. Radical concept, right? But I personally do this to my team, not to micromanage, just to stay connected to what's really happening.
Okay, so we've got the decline radar and protecting flywheel people. What's the third piece?
The third one is about risk, and this is where I see founders blow up their companies the most. The desperate moves Collins talks about in phase 4. So here's a framework. Before you make any big decision, you ask yourself one question. If this fails completely, can we survive?
That's it?
If the answer is no, you don't do it. Period. You find a smaller version of that bet first.
Like what Collins calls bullets before cannonballs.
Exactly. Dropbox did this beautifully in the early days. Before they built the full product, Drew Houston made a 3-minute video showing what it would do. That was the bullet. It cost almost nothing, and when the waitlist exploded, then they built the real thing.
So you test cheap before you bet big.
Always. And look, I get it. When you're in phase 3 or 4, everything feels urgent. You think you need to make a huge move to save the company, but that instinct is usually wrong because you're reacting from fear. And fear makes you stupid. It makes you think you need a savior CEO or a massive pivot or some acquisition that'll fix everything.
When really, you need to slow down and get back to basic.
Yeah, do the boring stuff well. Talk to your customers, ship small improvements, keep your best people happy.
You know what strikes me about all of this? None of it requires money.
Not $1. The decline radar is free. Talking to your team is free. Testing small before betting big actually saves you money.
So the founders who fail aren't failing because they lack resources.
They're failing because they lack awareness. They're not paying attention to the signs, or they're paying attention, but they're doing mental gymnastics to explain them away.
Like your friend with the customer chuna excuses.
Exactly like that. And every founder I know who's turned things around did it by getting honest first, before they changed their strategy, before they raised more money, before anything else.
They admitted they were in trouble.
They admitted they were in trouble, out loud, to themselves, to their team, sometimes to their board. And that honesty created space for actual solution.
Okay, Mart, we've covered a lot of ground today. Can you bring it all together for us? Like if someone's been listening to this whole conversation, what are the key things they should walk away with?
All right, let me bring this all together. We started by talking about why understanding failure matters more than studying success. Jim Collins showed us that decline happens in phases, and the scary part is that it starts when things are going well. Phase 1 is overconfidence. You start thinking everything you touch turns to gold. Phase 2 is overreaching. You chase growth for growth's sake instead of getting better. Phase 3 is when you ignore the warning signs or explain them away with excuses. And if you keep going, you hit phase 4, where you panic and make desperate moves that usually make things worse. But here's what matters most. Decline is recoverable. You can come back from this. The path back is simple.
Mark, after all of that, what's the one thing you really hope people don't forget?
The warning signs are always there. Always. The question is whether you have the courage to see them. Your company won't die because the market shifted or because some competitor got lucky. It will die because you chose comfort over honesty. So build that decline radar. Have the hard conversations. And remember that the founders who survive are the ones who refuse to lie to themselves. The Marketing Execution Podcast is produced by Growth Stage Marketing. We are on a mission to see your company reach wild success using marketing pods.
Too big, accept dreams. Catch the buzz and join the execution. Marketing cannonballs.
Thank you for listening and being a part of the marketing execution movement and community. To learn how growth stage marketing clients reach more buyers and drive business impact, go to growthstage.marketing. That's growthstage.marketing.